Good morning and welcome to this week's live IGTV. Is your teen becoming toxic? You know, the really snide comments, defense, sorry, internet connection, all of the things that are so frustrating for you and your co-parent, and it is impacting every part of your relationship with your teenager because this toxicity, the way that they are showing up in your relationship, does nothing but add fuel to conflict. So every communication that you seem to have, turns into conflict. Every communication that you have seems to take a turn for the worse, and no matter what you try, it doesn't seem like you can rein that back in. And so what ends up happening is you either walk on eggshells around your teenager because you're just afraid to say something because you don't want more conflict. You stop saying what needs to be said. Your teenager stops sharing what needs to be said or is only saying really nasty things because they are also angry and hurt and don't know how to explain it. And the chasm of disconnection between you and your teenager gets wider and wider as the communication goes down and the conflict goes up. If this at all sounds like something that you are experiencing with your teenager, you are in the right place. Welcome. Excuse me. My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach and certified relationship systems coach. I have been working with parents and teens and actually corporate culture to detox communication and the emotional blow-ups, the painful disconnection and stressful silences to build relationships based on trust and respect. And I have had the honor and absolute pleasure of doing that for 15 years this month. So I am super excited that you are here. I want to thank every one of you. I just want to take a second to say thank you. Thank you for every one of you who have chosen to be here, whether you randomly decided, oh, she's live, I should go check that out. Whether you followed me for a long time, whether you are just starting to check in. I'm here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, always talking about something to help your relationship with your teenager. So I just want to let you know that I am grateful that you are here. Okay, I need my own TV series. Oh my gosh, Shelda, that is such a wonderful compliment. Thank you. Thank you guys. I'm pretty darn excited. 15 years ago today. Well, not today. 15 years ago, a couple of weeks ago, I sent out my first email that said, okay, everybody, I'm becoming a coach. And I was starting my formalized coach training. And anyway, I'm just super, super, super grateful that you guys are choosing to be with me. So let's jump into the content. So today I'm talking about when your teen is becoming toxic. Now, I'm going to explain to you the toxic communication styles. I'm going to go over some quick little antidotes for them. The truth is, this is a larger topic, and I do have a download, a $27 download that has this in way bigger detail, covering the 9 largest most common in all my 15 years, pitfalls in communication between parents and teens. If you hit the link in my bio, it's how to raise your words with your teen, not your voice. How to raise your words with your teen, not your voice. It's $27 with videos of all 9 topics, complete scripts, how to get in it, how to get out of it, the science in the brain, why it happens, and what you need to do about it, so you can constantly navigate through and be skilled up to manage around them. If you use the discount code TALK, the number 2, teen, and 10. Can someone put that in the comments? TALK, 2, teen, 10. You get $10 off today. Okay, and that's Canadian dollars. So there you go. So I'm just going to touch on this. So the communication styles are this. They were studied. I do not take credit for this. The communication styles were formally studied and documented by Drs. John and Julie Gottman, who are some of the 4 founders. Thank you, Muggleborn. Yep, Talk to Teen 10. That's it. That's what you want to use. Thanks, Shelda. So if you go to Doctors John and Julie Gottman are the 4 founders of empirical study of relationship data. They've been working out of Washington State University for over 40 years, and they were the first to document and really study these toxic communication styles. Now, in their work, they have documented what they consider to be 4 of the most toxic communication styles. The reason they consider them toxic is because when they show up, the conversation ends. I always say it's like talking to a drunk. And I put myself in that boat. It's like talking to a drunk. Like you're trying to reason with somebody who isn't willing to, because when these toxic communication styles show up, the conversation literally can't go anywhere. It just hits walls all around it. And so it's thwarted. And so there's never resolution. The conversation never gets to resolution. You probably don't feel heard. Your teenager probably doesn't feel heard. And so what inadvertently ends up happening is that you're setting up a pattern. Because until something is resolved or people feel heard, it's likely that things are going to keep going that direction. And so this is what ends up happening, is that it's like, dang, it's so frustrating and annoying. It's like the worst version of Groundhog Day, because this negative communication with your teenager just keeps showing up. And because these toxic communication styles shut it down, it never comes to a healthy end. So it's like a weed, or like a bad, indigestion. It just keeps coming up and then going down, coming up and going down, but it never goes away. So that's what I want to give you some tools to do to deal with that today. Now, as I said, Doctors John and Julie Gottman, they call this the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, because, and it is like an ode to Joan of Arc and the Trojan horse, right? Like they come in looking okay, they come in seeming okay, like in a horse, and then, but all of a sudden, boom, everything blows up and it goes sideways. So the way that they have laid these out is, I said 4. I consider there to be 6, but that's only because I like to separate out each one, whereas they've kind of clumped some together. I in no way am trying to say I am smarter than those people, because heck no. They're like the gods, the mecca of relationship work. So let's start with the first one. We're going to start with the first one. We're going to use blame. Blame. How many of your teenagers use blame? So blaming is when I don't like my result or my emotional experience, I will blame someone else for it. Okay? So tell me if this sounds familiar with your teenager. Your teenager is saying, well, I didn't get a good grade on my mark because you made me do all this cleaning last night and then I didn't have time to study. You made me? Or I didn't have a good day at school because we were late because you made me late. Or something like that, right? Like there's blame. They're taking an emotional experience that they're having that feels uncomfortable and they're blaming it on someone else. Now, here's what's happening in the brain, okay? Blame is a normal human reaction. So can I just say this right now? If these toxic communication styles are showing up in your home, that doesn't make you a bad parent, doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make your teenager a bad person. These are actually normal coping mechanisms in our brains based on our level of emotional intelligence. So no judgment here. Like they just show up and they happen, and that's okay. So what we're going to talk about is building awareness around them so that we can create some different strategies to navigate through them. And again, this is all covered in my How to Raise Your Words with Your Teen, Not Your Voice, which you can get if you hit the link in my bio, or if you go to my website, alipayne.com, under products, How to Raise Your Words, Not Your Voice, and use the discount code TALK2TEEN10 for $10 off. Okay, so blame. Here's what happens in the brain for blame, okay? Blaming is when something happens that I don't like. Now, in that moment, my brain goes to a state of fight or flight. So I do this brain hand model all the time. This is the Dr. Daniel Siegel hand model of the brain. This is the amygdala, the emotional center. This is the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe that, when this is like a normal brain that's not hijacked. When you go into fight or flight, you're like, okay, so a result happened I don't like. So now my brain is partially triggered. It's just slightly triggered into fight or flight, okay? In that stage of fight or flight, your body, to some degree, fills with adrenaline, cortisol, okay? It can be to varying degrees, okay? Varying degrees of this. Removes, physiologically what happens is your blood flow from your major organs and your torso is removed from there, and your blood flow is pushed out quickly to your extremities so that you can go to fight or flight. Like flight, you need all the blood flow in your legs ASAP right now so you can run away. Fight, you need all the blood flow in your legs and your arms. So that's the physiology of what happens in fight or flight, okay? The physiological reaction of fight or flight can feel very unsafe and uncomfortable. It's like, it lasts about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Now, in that 90 seconds, the first thing your brain wants to tell you is get rid of it. Get it out. Get rid of it. Make it go away. And this is why we blame. This is why we snap and we blame. Okay? So that physiological reaction, we want to just get it out. Get rid of it. Move it away from me. So that's when your teenager may snap, or you may snap. Again, this is not about being bad, or if you're imperfect, you're in the right place. This is a natural coping mechanism in the brain that we lean into when we're not at our best, or our emotional intelligence just seems offline that day, okay? No judgment. So defensiveness is you're going to now take that reaction and blame someone else. Like, I spilt my coffee on myself. Let's just say. I didn't. I don't drink coffee. But let's just say I spilt my coffee on myself. Well, first of all, it's hot. And second of all, I don't like it. And now I'm at work with coffee all down my shirt. And I'll be like, ugh! If you hadn't taken my my mug, if you hadn't used my favorite mug, then I wouldn't be in a rush and I wouldn't have to do this. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Is I don't like the result that I have. And I don't know how to be with it. My brain went into fight or flight, so now I'm putting it on you. I'm putting it on you, okay? That's blame. Taking an experience or a result that I am uncomfortable with and I don't like, and I project it on you. Is that making sense? Can you guys just tell me if you're with me? I so love that you guys are even here and watching, but can you just make sure, is this making sense to you why blame happens? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Now, in blame, here's how you get out of blame. You say to your teenager, what do you want or what do you need? That's the antidote. What do you want or what do you need? Okay? Okay, thank you guys. I so want to serve. I just so want to help. And if I'm saying something that's completely not making sense, I really just need you guys to let me know. So you ask your teenager, now this is the hard part. This is the hard part. When someone comes at you with defensiveness, what's the normal reaction for you? Fight or flight, right? The normal reaction is your brain gets triggered and goes into, starting to flip your lid, goes into fight or flight. This is the hardest part. And I just want to say to all you parent hearts out there, mwah, I love you. This is so hard. When your teenager comes at you with defensiveness, to not react. That's very hard. Here's what I would do. Here's what I do. Actually, so like a hair tie or like an elastic, just a basic elastic, okay? If you keep an elastic around your wrist, sometimes is something because you can snap it, not to hurt yourself, but it's a neuro-linguistic programming. It's kind of like using a programming of, instead of reacting, because your brain's now doing the same thing. Your brain now is in fight or flight and you want to react and you want to put that on someone else. So instead of reacting, you can snap it. Anything that reminds you to do this, take a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, I want you to count to 5. Count to 5. So 2.5 counts in, 2.5 counts out. Okay? Because it is normal for you to feel hijacked by your teenager's defensiveness. So when you take a deep breath, 5, 2.5 in, 2.5 out, you calm your nervous system and you put your brain back together into a calmer state so you can respond, not react. You can respond. Yes, this will be on my profile as soon as I'm finished. You bet. So what you do is you breathe, count to 5 and breathe. Now you can turn to your teen, because this is so hard not to take personally. And I see your hurting heart. If this has been going on for a long time, very, very hard not to take personally. Then you can say to your teenager, what do you want or what do you need? Like, you can ask them either one or both. You can say, what do you want or need right now? Now, they might get more frustrated with you because they might be like, don't therapy me. That's okay. That's okay. They're going to need to get used to you not reacting and you responding in a way that is helping them to deal with their emotional state. So that's okay. Find your own words. But these are the words of Dr. John and Julie Gottman, is that the way to get through defensiveness is I want or I need. So it could be, I need to get up 5 minutes earlier in the morning so that I'm not late. It could be, now it's not always something that you want your teenager to take responsibility for and make, because your teenager isn't at that point of emotional intelligence where they're yet willing to look at themselves and what they can do differently. That's another reason why they blame. Okay. So on that note, I want to say one more thing. This is another reason why blame happens. Blame happens because if I were to say to myself, I wonder what I could do to make it different next time, and you are not in a place of emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, which the teenage brain is really just starting to develop, that emotional regulation and impulse control, okay? There is a part of your brain, little pea-sized part of your brain right here at the back, that is intended to keep you safe. And when I say safe, I don't just mean physically safe. Oh no, I also mean emotionally safe. Emotionally safe. And if you were to take responsibility for that, your brain tells you, well, then you must have been wrong. There must be something wrong with you. Because look at what you created. So you must be wrong. So that is scary for the brain. It's terrifying for the brain to be seen as wrong. That challenges everything about your self-identity, your self-confidence, what you believe you are, what you love about yourself, all of those things. I know this sounds ridiculous when we're talking about just being late for school or not doing well on an exam, but this is what happens in the teenage brain, okay? And in the adult brain too. But it takes emotional awareness and intelligence and practice to do this, to know that if something happened that I don't like, an emotional experience or a result that I don't like, that doesn't mean I am a failure, that I failed. It doesn't define me. It's just something that happened. It doesn't define me. But you see, the teenage brain doesn't know this, and a lot of adults don't know this either. So your teenager, I get parents who tell me this all the time. All my teenager does is blame, and they're so defensive, which we'll get into in a sec. They're so defensive because they won't just take responsibility. They won't be accountable. Okay, well, here's why. Because if they were to say, maybe there's something about me that I need to change or look at, that is the challenge in their brain that says they must be a screw up, they did something wrong, and they're a giant failure. So unless you are saying to your teenager in this stage of blame, in this blame unless you're saying something like, okay, what do you want or what do you need? And then they say whatever they say, and then you let them know, this doesn't make you a bad person. This doesn't mean you failed. Mistakes, this is epidemic level, you guys. Please hear this. Epidemic level, in my opinion. My little, teeny, ant-like, humble opinion, okay? Teenagers are terrified to take responsibility for anything because they truly believe it defines them as being a failure. So until you and I start talking about failure and modeling, taking full ownership of our emotional experience and our results in a way that doesn't challenge our value in this world, our lovability, our teenagers are going to keep blaming. They're just going to keep blaming, and they're going to keep being defensive, and they're not going to take responsibility or be accountable. Okay, so here's how I would do blame. Now, here's the other part of blame. Okay, here's how are you modeling to your teenager when you have an emotional experience or result that you don't like? Here's an example. Let's say I go to work and I was late. So I was late getting up. I spilled my smoothie or my coffee, so we were late leaving. Then I had a fight with you, my teenager, because then we were late leaving the door, rushed. Don't we all love the rushed mornings? No, everyone hates it. It's like the worst part of the day when you're rushed. Then you get your teenager to school. Now they're whingy because we're running late. You hit more red lights on the way to work, and you get into work and your colleague doesn't give you the report that you needed for now the meeting you're also late for, or at least running behind for, okay? Not an awesome way to start your day, right? Like, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it just feels awful, right? Now, here's the kicker. When you get home that day, what do you say to your teenager? Do you say, oh, I had such an awful day today. The stupid smoothie spilt all over me, and then I hit every red light, and Karen didn't get me that report, and I was late for the meeting, and then my boss reprimanded me. Oh, it was such a stupid day. Or do you say, I had a really frustrating day. I was just so mad. I hit snooze one too many times on my alarm because I was tired. Then I spilt my smoothie. Then we were late for school, and I know you and I had a fight. And then I hit every red light. And you know what? I just need a minute to be with all of this. I feel annoyed. I feel frustrated. And I just need to breathe for a bit to manage all this. Okay? And then do you say to your teenager sometime later, I had a really hard day. I can see how, maybe you can't see how you might have done something different. And can I just say, do we have to play in fault and blame? Can you just let that go? Because fault and blame is for the court of law. Fault and blame rarely works in relationships, let alone the relationship with yourself. Okay? So if you are modeling, blaming everything in your life on something outside of you, not taking ownership of this was my experience, I hated it, it was really sucky, and I just need to be with it for a bit. And I need to forgive whoever I need to forgive. Often it's myself. I need to forgive myself. I can ask myself, is there something else I could do differently to prevent that from happening again? So for me, I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to hit snooze anymore. Or if I'm going to hit snooze, I'm going to put my alarm for a little bit earlier to prevent that. You're not going to never avoid it. You can't control the red lights. You might still hit all the red lights. But if you're up earlier, this is just an example. This is you taking responsibility for how you might create a different result next time. Are you modeling this with your teenager? Because the way that you model blaming or defensiveness is what you're going to get back from your teenager. And there's no perfection. Your teenager's still going to do this. So we use toxic communication styles. Blame is one of the ones I was talking about, as a coping mechanism, natural, inherent coping mechanism in the brain, when it feels too frightening to own my emotional experience, let alone see how I might make my results different next time. That takes a level of emotional awareness to know that doesn't at all question or lower my inherent human value, doesn't make me less lovable, doesn't make me stupid, doesn't make me like a fat, ugly pig. It doesn't make like all these horrible things that we all say to ourselves. It also doesn't mean any of that. It just happened. Okay, it's part of life. So when you can model this for your teenager, this is what you help your teenager to take ownership, because it becomes safe to take ownership. And safety comes with asking them, what do you want and what do you need? Okay, so you not getting triggered by your teenager's toxic communication, like blame and all of that stuff, is really important. Now, I'm not saying tolerate disrespect. Hell no. If you are new to my show or my game, let me tell you, I do not stand for disrespect. I think every single person in this world deserves basic dignity and respect. That includes you and includes your teenager. So I'm not saying that it's okay for you to be disrespected. I'm saying just understand, let's talk about blame and defensiveness and why they're happening. Okay, so let's go to the next level of toxic communication. I'm not going to cover them all because they're in that complete communication guide, the how to raise your words with your teen, not your voice, which is in the link in my bio. But defensiveness is one that Dr. John and Julie Gottman, they couple that with criticism. I like to separate them, but they couple it. Here's the difference between criticism and blame. Blaming is you must be responsible for something that happened to me, for me, that I don't like. So I'm projecting my negative, or let's just say unwanted emotional experience or result that I don't like on you. Okay, that's blame. Criticism is I'm now making it a character fault of yours. That's the difference between criticism and blame. Criticism is still the same thing. Like I could say, well, I wouldn't be late for school if you weren't so lazy. Ooh, ow, right? I wouldn't be late for school if you weren't so lazy and got up on time. Or I wouldn't be late for school if you weren't such a bad mom and didn't make me take out the garbage. Okay, that's criticism. Because now I'm projecting my unwanted emotional experience or result on you with a character cut, a slant on you and your character. That's criticism. That is toxic. The difference between criticism and a complaint is just saying what I don't like. I don't want to take out the garbage. No, none of my friends have to take out the garbage. Or, my brother doesn't take out the garbage. Why do I have to do it? That's just a complaint. Okay, it's not toxic because it's just saying what I don't want. So blame and criticism in the Gottman the Gottman model of the four toxic communication styles, those are lumped together, okay? Then we have defensiveness and sarcasm together. I also like to separate these out. This is why I say there's 6, but there is only 4. So defensiveness is when I feel attacked. Now, I know you don't intentionally ever go and attack your teenager. I got it, okay? I got it. The teenage brain, because of the growth phase, the second and final growth phase that goes on in adolescence, okay, has the emotional brain, the amygdala, not quite covered. It's like a turtle with a soft shell. Everything just feels raw and prickly and angsty and frustrated and defensive and angry, okay? That's kind of normal for the teenage brain. So you could say, oh, I love you, my sweet child. And your teenager could be like, you're so mean. Like, sometimes it feels like that much of a disconnect, right? Like, you're like, what? I just did something really nice. How can you feel attacked? Trust me, your teenager's gonna feel attacked. It's a part of a function of their brain, okay? Now, when they feel attacked, now it could be your tone, because it's normal for you to get frustrated. So now you got the tone going on, right? Oh my gosh, how much do we hear about the tone? So when you are feeling frustrated and you get a bit of a frustrated tone, which I totally understand, welcome to the club. Now your teenager may perceive, it is highly likely because of the function of the formation of their brain, that they are going to feel attacked. And when they feel attacked, they are going to come back at you with defensiveness. Defensiveness is like, I didn't do that. Or I used to say to my son when he would come in the door, like, hey, do you mind emptying the dishwasher? He's like, I just got home. Do you know what I mean? It's just, there's something really defensive. If you can imagine a physicality to it, it would be going like this. It's like just pushing somebody away verbally. That's defensiveness. And again, it comes from being attacked. So if you can learn, and this is hard, to breathe, take that breath, count to 5, 2.5 in, 2.5 out. You regulate your own nervous system so you can get your brain back nicely, safely covered, and you can respond as opposed to react and say to your teenager, what do you want or what do you need right now? That is the antidote for defensiveness as well. What do you want? What do you need? My son might have said, well, I just need 10 minutes to be in my room when I come home from school before you start telling me what chores I need to do. I'd be like, okay, I totally get that. Awesome. So when you are saying to your teenager, what do you want? What do you need? You're modeling a couple things. You're modeling that they are taking ownership of how they're feeling. And better yet, number 2, you are teaching and mentoring them in self-advocacy. Self-advocacy, how to ask for what you want rather than using defensiveness to push away what you don't want. Okay, because the teenage brain, and this is not, your teenager's not less than intelligent. It is normal for our brains to push against what we don't want as opposed to ask for what we do want. Self-advocacy is actually a wildly underestimated skill. Asking for what you do want, okay? So that's why saying to your teenager, it sounds like you're feeling attacked, right? This is what I used to say to my son. Sounds like you're feeling attacked right now. What do you want or need? That's it. That's it. Now, as that progressed later, I started to say to my son, I notice that when I say these certain things to you, it sounds like you're feeling attacked. Help me to understand. Is there a way I'm saying this or something you're hearing me that I'm unaware of? Now, I'm going to just tell you right now. This went on for 2 years with my son, this whole defensiveness game. It wasn't very fun. And I will tell you this, not one single time when I asked my son in calm, regulated moments, when I said to him, is there something I'm asking you or something you're hearing me say that has you feel attacked? Because I'm not sure what it is and I'm obviously missing it. I'm unclear. Not one time did he answer me. He didn't have an answer in 2 years, you guys. 2 years. And this is why I'm saying this is part of a function of the teenage brain. So all you can do is respond rather than react. So use that count to 5, 2.5 breaths in, 2.5 counts out. One breath, 2.5 in, 1 breath, 2.5 out. And you can respond to them. Teach them self-advocacy rather than reacting, because now you've got a toxic communication soup and it will be World War III real fast. Okay? So we've covered blame, criticism. That's defensiveness. The next one is sarcasm. Sarcasm is when you take humor, which is an awesome thing that our world needs a whole lot more of. Okay? And you take humor and, oh my goodness, I'm going to say that again. Humor is an awesome thing that we like, we love. But sarcasm is when you take an important or vulnerable, difficult communication, I'm using this as a prop, and you wrap it in humor. as if somehow the receiver is going to be able to make sense of that. They're not, and it's not helpful, like at all. Not helpful at all. But sarcasm is one of the most widely accepted and exalted toxic communication styles. It is often used for self-deprecation, but it is very, very common. So here's the problem with sarcasm, is that I never have to learn to be vulnerable or courageous in my self-advocacy to make difficult communications or requests and then be with the discomfort of perhaps hurting your feelings, because I'm taking that difficult communication and I'm wrapping it in humor. Here's the problem, the receiver. Here's what happens in the receiver's brain if you're using sarcasm not just as self-deprecating humor, which don't you be doing that, because I will fiercely come and get you, because your worth is so much more than you believe, so don't degrade it. That's just my little soapbox. What ends up happening for the receiver's brain is the receiver's brain is confused. Yeah, what a waste of humor. If you're gonna be funny, go be funny. The receiver's brain is confused because the humor is lost, because their brain hears humor and their brain hears a difficult cutting communication that's a bit twisted in it, and their brain doesn't know whether to pay attention to the humor, and they often miss the critical, perhaps vulnerable, difficult communication. So you've wasted both. But it's a normal coping technique when in a place of emotional intelligence or emotional awareness that isn't built like a muscle, to use sarcasm as a way to convey something that feels challenging. So the way for you to model that for your teenager is to model vulnerable communication. You can even say to your teenager, look, this feels hard to say. And then use I, not you. I feel blah, 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 or I would like blah, 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 whatever. Take ownership, okay? So you're modeling having difficult communications with your teenager instead of wrapping it, and then make humor something that's a wonderful part of your family, but don't use it for sarcasm. That's a giant waste, okay? All right, so that's 2 of the 4 because Dr. Gottman puts these together. So blame and criticism, it considers 1, sarcasm and defensiveness another. The third is stonewalling. Stonewalling is ghosting, the ghosting of 2020. Stonewalling is literally a refusal to engage. That's it. I refuse to engage with you. And when I refuse to engage, what happens is, because teenagers use this all the time, this is literally, oh my gosh, teenagers use this all the time as a way to avoid hurting someone's feelings. It's an unwillingness or feeling unskilled to participate in a difficult communication because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings, so they just disengage. Like, Houston, we've lost connection. Houston, hello, hello? What ends up happening, you might feel more protected because you haven't had to participate in a difficult communication, or your teenager hasn't. But what ends up happening to your teenager, or to you might really get this if your teenager does this to you, you're left holding the bag on the relationship. You're left holding the bag. And for teenagers who do this to each other, because of their level of emotional intelligence and awareness, what happens is when you're left holding the bag, then there is an internalization that somehow you did something wrong or you are wrong. You're unlovable. You're obviously not a good friend. This is what teenagers are doing to each other every effing day by text, Snapchat. And yes, it makes me mad because the mental impact of stonewalling or the silent treatment, ghosting, is, do not underestimate that. But understand that people do it because they're afraid to hurt someone's feelings. They feel unskilled or unwilling to participate. So the only way to navigate through that is to, first of all, let them know. Self-advocacy. It's okay to say what you need to say. And yes, someone might not like that, but not saying what you need to say is a fake relationship. It's not a real relationship. I don't know if we've covered that yet, but that's a fake relationship. okay? So saying what you need to say is critical, all right? Now, that is stonewalling, and it happens again all the effing time. Teenagers are using it every single day, all the time. So the way to support your teenager is by having conversations with them, talking to them about the conversations they're stonewalling in on text or Snap, and say, well, if you could respond and you weren't worried about hurting their feelings, what would you say? What would you say? And sometimes for teenagers, it's that they're not sure what to say because processing takes longer in their brain because their brain is becoming a more complex computing system with far more complex emotions and feelings. Their brain is writing so many more complex neural pathways that they can't yet find or sort how they feel or what they think about something, so they just don't respond because they take longer to process. But instead, they could say, I need a bit to think about this, or I'm not sure yet, or can I get back to you? But they don't say anything. That's stonewalling. Now, here's the fourth and final toxic communication style that just came up in my free parenting community the other day that I wanted to address, and it is contempt. Contempt is the most toxic of the toxic communication styles. Again, you will find all of these plus more in my How to Raise Your Words with Your Teen, Not Your Voice. If you hit the link in my bio, you scroll down, you can find it. It's a $27 complete communication guide with the 9 biggest communication chasms, pitfalls that upend relationships between parents and teens and increase conflict and lower communication. And if you use the discount code TALK2TEEN10, okay, you get $10 off. So there is full videos, scripts of how to get through it, the science of why it happens in the brain, and how you can continue to navigate and teach her. It's all in one giant document, okay? Okay, so contempt is the worst because contempt comes from a position of superiority, hatred. So all the isms are based in contempt. Racism, sexism, every bigotry, those are all based in contempt. A way of saying, I am inherently better than you. You just don't realize it, so I'm going to tell you. I'm going to oppress, hate. Like it is yucky. Contempt is yucky, but it comes up quite often in siblings, and it may also come up between you and your teenager, and here is why. Contempt will show up after a long period of feeling disrespected, unheard, unlovable, not being accepted, feeling shamed or judged or criticized. So contempt is normal. I just can't say this enough, okay? These are human, natural, normal things. I have used contempt with my husband in our really bad days over years of our hardest times. I used contempt against my husband. I used contempt against my parents when I was a teen because I came from an abusive environment, and no matter what I said, they wouldn't stop. There was no conversation. There was no explaining to them that this was not right. That, like, I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't get it to stop. So I was contemptuous with my parents because of long-standing feeling disrespected, unheard, unlovable, all of those things, okay? So I'm not judging anyone who's using contempt because I am not the person to judge at all, okay? But contempt is the most toxic because the person on the receiving end, they have scientifically proven that it changes the brain of the person who's on the receiving end of contempt because it is the same as emotional abuse. So if you have siblings and you've got one of them treating the other like a second-class citizen, like I mean mean, beyond just sibling rivalry, I mean mean, you probably have contempt. And the only way to address contempt is to create the emotional safety. Instead of disciplining the contempt, disciplining contempt, disciplining contempt, disciplining the contempt. Like, be nicer, stop being so mean. You're not going to get anywhere. So, oh, sorry, stop touching my phone. Don't waste your time doing that. You got to get to the root of it. The root is there is pain under there. There's pain. There's anger. There's resentment. Creating emotional safety by having curious, compassionate conversations with your child. By saying to them, it sounds like you're really upset. Tell me more about that. Or it sounds like you're really angry. Tell me about that. And when I say, I'm watching you, you say, tell me about that, you had better zip it. And I mean it, you zip it. Because if you want to create emotional safety, this is not the time to interrupt, judge, correct, fix, rescue, nothing. That is the time to listen with these, not this. Listen. And you do it over and over and over and over until your teenager has done. Because there's a lot in there. That's how contempt got formed. So you listen and listen and listen. Now, I'm not saying that what they're going to say might feel hard or might feel easy to hear. It might feel like saying, I don't think you love me. And I don't like when you talk to me like this. And I feel like you treat me like I'm not smart enough and you love my brother more. And you guys, like, whatever. Listen. Because your teenager's perspective is their truth. That's their reality. I'm not saying it's okay for them to be super disrespectful. Yeah, if they're saying nothing, I'm fine, then they're not feeling emotionally safe to talk about it. So you got to keep working on it. You got to keep working on it, Libby. You keep working and you keep saying, I will listen. Anytime you want to share with me, I will listen. And then you do that. You keep your word and you listen. The only line is if they get disrespectful and you say, if they're like name calling and using hatred towards you, you're like, no, that's a boundary for me. I will absolutely listen to anything you have to say because I love you and what you have to say is important to me. I won't listen when I hear these specific words and phrases. I will leave and I'll check back. And when I come back, if you want to try again, I will listen. And you just keep listening. So if they're saying nothing or I'm fine, they don't feel safe enough to share yet. Or they might not feel safe enough to share with you. Maybe they'd share with a family friend, a teacher, a counselor, a therapist, something. Try not to take it too personally though, Libby, okay? Because this isn't about being a good parent or a bad parent, okay? Like, this is just reality of human nature and relationship dynamic, okay? Just keep trying. So when you create these safety with a conversation, here's where I can see it coming up. This is coming up in my world. I see, yeah, and Libby, that's okay. Just keep doing it. Just keep saying, I love you. Your feelings matter to me. I do want to hear what you have to say. And if you ever want to share with me, I promise you I will listen. But like I said, then you keep your word. Keep your word and just listen. And when they're done or whatever, you'd be like, thank you so much for sharing. That's it. That's all. Okay. This is where it's coming up in my world is with siblings. Now, it can come up with siblings for a couple reasons. When one sibling is comparing themselves to the other, they may feel like you compare them to the other. That may not be it. Again, this is not a judgment on your parenting, okay? I know you're an amazing parent. I know you're trying your hardest. There's no training for this. When one child is comparing themselves to the other and constantly feels like they come up short. So this is all going on in their head. They will get contemptuous with this other sibling, like hatred beyond hatred, toxic hatred, because they feel like they're constantly less than this sibling. They never measure up. This sibling is the golden child. This sibling gets all the good grades, or this sibling never gets in trouble, or this sibling does all the right things, or whatever, right? Now you're going to get contempt. It might be that the way they see you, and perception is reality. It could be that the way they see you express love to this child is what they want, but they don't feel like they get that from you. Okay, so we have an issue. So this is why it's really important for you to dig into personality styles, love languages, all this stuff that I cover in my Empowered Parent Mastermind, which starts again in January, so that you're sending love to your child in a way that works for them not a way that, not your natural way. So contempt can come up for that. It can also come up, this is real for me. I have a son who had generalized anxiety, OCD, and we literally for 3 years, I always joke that the neighbors raised my other son because he had 3-hour anxiety attacks every Saturday and every Sunday. We couldn't leave the house. It was awful. And my husband and I didn't know what to do. We were still figuring all this out. And so we spent a lot of time with my oldest, and my youngest, we didn't spend a lot of time with him for a long time. Fortunately, I've talked to him about this now, he's 18 now, and he's an extrovert. So he actually loved being out with the neighbors and loved being with other kids. He didn't feel left out or unloved in those years, those very challenging years where we had to focus on my other son. But that can be a reason contempt shows up too, is if you have a child who has higher needs and they get perhaps more of your emotional energy, your attention, then the one who requires less time might feel contemptuous because they feel less loved. Okay, just remember that contempt, there's a lot, disciplining the contempt, it's important to acknowledge the contempt if it's showing up between your siblings or between you and your teenager, but that's not the solution. The solution is underneath. And it is a consistency, Libby, you said it perfectly. It's a consistent saying, I love you, your feelings matter to me. It seems like you're angry or you're upset. If you want to share with me, or when you want to share with me, I promise you I will listen. And then you can lay out, if they start, like I said, getting hateful or whatever, you just lay out that boundary, but then you keep circling back and you keep saying, I love you. It seems like you're upset. What your feelings matter to me. You matter to me. I do want to hear. And you just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And when they say something though, oh, I cannot stress this enough. Zip it and listen. Okay, so those are the 4 toxic communication styles that I wanted to talk to you about. Again, I broke them into 6 because there is actually 6, but Dr. John and Julie got me to lump a couple of them together. My how to raise your words with your teen and not your voice covers 9 over my 15 years. I just hit 15 years this year. 15 years of working with parents and teens, of the 9 most common communication pitfalls, not because you're not a good parent, because this is human relation dynamic and nobody's teaching this in school. I don't know why. I had to learn it the hard way too. I am a defensive diva. Let me tell you, I have had to work on this stuff, seriously work on this stuff. This complete communication guide that I put together, it's $27 Canadian. It has videos. It has scripts that you can use. It talks about the science in the brain of why they happen, how to navigate through them so that you can lower conflict and toxicity and increase communication with your teenager. And it also works with your partner, but just that's a secret between you and me. If you're interested in that, you can go to the link in my bio. You can find it there. If you use the discount code TALK2TEEN10, you get $10 off. Okay. You can also find it on my website, alipayne.com, under products. Okay. If you are looking for more, if you hit the link in my bio under the community button, that is my free community. It takes a village. You are always welcome there. There's 1,200 caring and courageous parents just like you in rich conversation every single day, because in my communities, I stand for 2 things. Sorry, not sorry. Safety and encouragement. These are not your average parenting communities. There is no judgment, criticism, ripping people a new one, or you're out. My communities are safe and supportive places for parents to share vulnerable things that they may never have said out loud before, and going to be guaranteed you get encouragement, compassion, and if you don't understand what someone's saying or you don't agree with it, we ask questions to understand first, because we all know that by asking questions and seeing things from a different perspective or through a different lens, we're all going to grow and learn something. That's what I stand for in my parenting communities. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This will be available here on my IGTV, on my Instagram. I will also post this to YouTube if you are interested. So I wish you all a wonderful week. Thank you again for being here, for listening, for participating, commenting, and I hope to connect with you all very soon. Bye.